Well, I think it's finally time. I think it's finally time that I sit down and review Halloween Horror Nights 2022 at Universal Studios Hollywood. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Attractions. My name is Scott, and you're watching your stop for all things theme park and attraction related. If you're new here, consider subscribing down below with those bell notifications on, and make sure to check out all of our other fun haunt season content, as well as Disney stuff that's also on there for all of you guys to enjoy. And as always, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like at the end. It helps out the channel a whole lot. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down Halloween Horror Nights 2022. I'm going to be giving my in-depth review between the haunted houses, the scare zones, what they need to improve on next year, what they should have already improved on, and just take a deep dive into Halloween Horror Nights this year. Like I said, this is for Hollywood, so I may do an Orlando one when I go next week, but this is just solely Hollywood based. Keep in mind, these are just my opinions, and this is just stuff that I've observed from going a couple times already. So if you guys have different takes and opinions, let me know down below in the comments section. I'd love to hear what you guys think about HHN this year. Now, this is going to be split up into multiple parts, so let's first start off with the haunted houses. Leading up to the event, Murdy and just the entire Universal PR team, it seems like, hyped up the houses a whole lot. They talked about how these are going to be scenically pleasing, and it's going to be something that we weren't expecting, and just a shock to everybody. When we went on the behind the scenes tour with John Murdy, he discussed a lot that the scenic is going to be great this year. Like, that's really what they're focusing on. That scenic's going to be great. And he emphasized on the minus of black walls, that there would be no more black walls anymore. They want to do some detail with the black wall section. And to that point, I think a lot of that hype stayed true. The houses this year are very, very scenic heavy, especially with the Weekend After Hours Nightmare, Scarecrow. Those two houses, the scenic in them is absolutely beautiful, and it's awesome. It's something that us in Hollywood aren't used to. Orlando always gets the giant sets and the scenically beautiful houses. Well, in Hollywood this year, I think that we have that. There are so many surprises throughout the different houses that it's just such a shock and something that you wouldn't expect from Hollywood, but they delivered this year. I can honestly say that there's no house that I'm like extremely disappointed in, other than Killer Clowns from Outer Space, just because it seems like that was a last minute add to the event, just something to increase the capacity a little bit more. But everything else was great. The returning ones were great. La Llorona, Terror Tram is good. Scarecrow in the Weekend, I mean, phenomenal. And I'll get to my house rankings in a separate video in a few weeks or so. I just want to get a couple more run-throughs to them before I sit down and make my official ranks. I mean, Universal Horror Hotel, it's amazing what they did with that new Walking Dead location. Like, it's truly remarkable. And I'd hope that despite all the issues that they're having with the fire alarm and having to evac everybody, that they figure out a way to be able to use that location for years to come. Now let's move into the crowd control of the event. The crowd control this year is a little bit ridiculous. On opening weekend, it seemed like it was perfect. Like, nothing had any issues. All the houses were relatively normal weights for what you'd expect them to be. Well, as these past couple weekends have gone on, that has gone out the window. We know that last year and in 2019, they had a huge capacity issue, jamming in as many people as possible into the park. There were fights with guests and just a whole ton of operational issues. Well, unfortunately, those issues are back once again. And this goes back to my talk about adding, one last house to increase the capacity, if you will. Now, we just recently went to Knott's Scare Farm, and they have a chaperone policy in play and just a whole bunch of operational policies in play. I mean, they have signs all outside of the gates telling everybody the code of conduct, and with that chaperone policy and the new kind of code of conduct being heavily pushed throughout the event, not only is there not tons and tons of crowds and you're jam-packed like sardines, but it's also just 10 times more of an enjoyable experience and a more safer experience. Now, I always hate comparing two events like Scary Farm and Horror Nights to each other. However, I feel like since Knott's Scary Farm went through it and Knott's in general went through it and just Cedar Fair in general went through it, then I feel like I should bring it up with the code of conduct and seeing how it's been rolled out with their haunt event. Now, moving on from those operational issues into more crowd control, which is of course the standby wait times. I feel like standby is really ruined this year, and unfortunately it seems like they're overselling Express on a nightly basis. and guests are paying a hefty price for express passes. And keep in mind, the whole express issue isn't happening every single hour that the event runs, it just so happens here and there. But there's often times where we'll find ourselves waiting in a posted like 30-minute wait that actually turns into an hour wait because the express line is so filled up. So I think that they need to relook at how many of those passes they sell. Obviously it's bringing them in money, but if that's the case, lower the RIP tour down a little bit, and that way more people will purchase the RIP tour option. And honestly, that's just way more of an enjoyable experience with the RIP tour, getting free food and then obviously unlimited express at the end of the night. Moving into just overall experience of the event, I think that the overall experience is awesome. There's bars. They obviously have the Universal Plaza section, which is a big hit. There's a couple characters walking around in there having a good time, being able to take photos with the different guests and whatnot. And then you have the Weekend After Hours Nightmare Bar. That bar is such a vibe. It's so fun to just sit up there, enjoy a drink, listen to all the music playing, and there's a cool photo opportunity up there as well. There's tons of merchandise this year, so there's nothing that you can leave with the Universal saying, hey, I didn't see anything that I liked that I wanted to purchase or take home as a souvenir. There is tons of merch this year, and let me tell you guys, the merch is awesome this year. I mean, the fact that they have a Terror Tramp sweatshirt and t-shirt speaks for itself in their merch game. They typically never do Terror Tramp shirts. I've never seen Hollywood Harry on a shirt, and granted, yes, this is more marketed towards a Nope and Us, Jordan Peele's films, but still, it says Terror Tramp on there, and that shirt is awesome. So there's plenty of merchandise, plenty of stuff for people to take home and remember the event. And like I said, I think that there's plenty of bars and just fun experiences throughout the event. Whether it be like themed food, the pizza fries, the different themed drinks, there's tons to do. So if you're just wanting to go and have a good time and just party it up at a Halloween event, then they'll have that too. I think there's a little bit something for everybody. Like there's that kind of vibe of a Halloween party with haunted houses and having kind of a plus there and just drinking with your friends and having a good time. And then there's also something for diehard horror fans who just want to go for the haunted houses and the scare zones and just get this living crap scared out of them. And I think it's a good mix this year. I think with Orlando's event, they have that every single year, and that's what Hollywood is lacking, but they have really shown that they can bring that here, more of like that Halloween party type of vibe. And honestly, I'm all for it. I love the Halloween party vibe of Horror Nights. And I mean, as far as guest experience goes, you have the Death Eaters in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which I really hope that they bring that back every year. I think that's a huge hit just with general public fans who are coming into Horror Nights for the first time. Seeing Death Eaters and being like such a big fan of Harry Potter is such a cool and unique thing, especially the way that they set it up to where you kind of go to the right and go down the alleyway of Hogsmeade Village. I think that was such a clever and interesting way to do Death Eaters because you see them all over the place. And not only that, I feel like they also like act like characters, like they jump out at you here and there and kind of give you a little bit of spook. Obviously they're not super fast moving like all the characters in Scare Zone 1, but they are trying to give guests a spook while they're walking through. I don't know, I hope J.K. Rowling has no issues with the future of Horror Nights, because to see Death Eaters every single year would be awesome, and it gives guests a reason to go back to those houses in the H-Slot, Scarecrow, and Halloween. I want to move into our last topic here, and that of course is Scare Zones. Now, one thing that Horror Nights is lacking in this year is Scare Zones. It seems like with Scare Zone 1, Clown Sauce, and the Sideshow Slaughterhouse, there's not a whole lot of going on. There's tons of characters running around, there's the flame towers, and that's about it. There's nothing around the streets that's dressed up, there's nothing in the very front of the park that's dressed up. I mean, you have oftentimes where the Clown Saws are all pushed all the way up to where the Sideshow Slaughterhouse zone is supposed to be at, where in years prior that they've done the two separate zones on the main street right there, they've been a little bit more separated. I think that's one con for this year's event, is that first kind of scare zone. And obviously there's a whole lot of stuff in the lower lot that is going on. It's super crowded down there, so they can't really do a scare zone. But in 2019 they did do kind of a Chainsaw Brigade, and that worked a whole lot. It wasn't like an official zone, but that really did work a whole lot, and I think that they should keep that going. I don't know why they didn't bring that back last year. Obviously you have the reasoning of social distancing and whatnot, but still I think that it should have came back this year just to add a little bit more to the lower lot. Now, El Pueblo del Terra, the one at the end of La Llorona, is awesome. Like, I love that zone so much. There's stilt walkers walking all over the place. You see all these Mexican urban legends, and then it leads you, of course, right into the Haunted Forest. The Haunted Forest is really cool. It's not tons of characters in there trying to scare the living crap out of you, but still it gives you a good kind of Halloween vibe. Something that you take your, I don't know, your teenage son in to give him a spook, but get him prepared for the haunted houses that they're about to encounter. I really love the Haunted Forest, and just the lighting in there and all the fog going there. It's fun to take pictures. It's fun to just sit and relax and take in everything. So I really hope that they bring that back next year. That was a 10 out of 10 decision by Universal. And then, of course, you have the massive new double stilt walker walking all over the place, the giant crow. Murdy actually hasn't put out a name for him other than like Crowboy, but this thing is impressive. The way that they're able to move the mouth on the mask and just the glowing red eyes and seeing how tall he is compared to the other scare actor, it's awesome. Like, I hope that they do different designs of this on a yearly basis, and we see a new one next year and years to come. But I think scare zones, they need to relook at it a little bit more and be like, okay, what can we do to add more to Scare Zone 1? All the other zones are great. The Haunted Forest, obviously Death Eaters, and El Pueblo del Terror, those are all great. I think that they did a really good job with them and painting the right theme around them. However, with Scare Zone 1, it was just a little bit disappointing this year. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for my take on Horror Nights this year. I was hyping this event up a whole lot because I was hearing rumblings that this event was going to shock us all, and it did. It really did shock me, and I think that it really packs a punch this year. Like, this feels like all the quality and everything feels like the olden days, like 2013, 2012, all those years, to where they really relied on scenic and just, like I said, that Halloween party. And I can't recommend it enough. Like, I really do not think that this year's event is bad. I don't think there's any issues with it like we've had in years prior, other than a couple adjustments that they need to make, and like I said, we discussed those earlier on in the video. But I want to know, do you guys agree with me as far as Halloween Horror Nights goes? Is there something that I missed out that you wanted to touch up on? Let me know down below in the comments section. But as for today's video, guys, my name is Scott, and you've been watching Exploring Attractions. Positivity is key, and most importantly, remember to keep exploring. Peace out, everybody.